Okay, Tom, you're all set?
Now I sit on this. Oh, but usually that's not the number. Everyone else is over here, so no, I'll sit over because the next step down to ritual is on that side of the room.
That's how you recognize it. I was trying to
We used to be over in Mesa someplace.
yeah, the big ritual.
Welcome. I'm going to be presenting a class on Selenium and large-scale architecture. Hopefully, after listening to a couple of classes, hopefully the presentation of the architecture I'm going to show you, I can solve some of your agile problems I've heard in some of these classes. My name is Gilmore. I am an open source consultant. I specialize in going into agile corporations and implementing open source packages to them. So I just want to I'm going to cover a lot of material in this class, so we're going to be going along pretty quickly. I will try to give you some ideas, especially when we go to some of the coding. I'll try to slow down a little so I at least give you an idea of what we're talking about. I'm going to try to explain the difference between Selenium products. There's a lot of misconception out there of what exactly Selenium is. I'm going to give you some difference between open source products like Selenium and some of the commercial tools like QTP and why you should actually be using open source tools. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the merger of open source and agile communities. A lot of people are not actually familiar with these communities that actually sort of merged. I'm going to give you a little information about some of the falsities about Selenium that I hear people, especially when I go into clients, and they tell me, oh, Selenium can't do this, and I have to quickly show them what it actually can do. I'm going to give you an actual overview of one of my clients, their actual environment that they have in place right now. And then I'm going to talk to you about the page object methodology, which is what Selenium actually uses, which if you're using a large-scale environment, you should be using the page object methodology. Then I'm going to actually go and show you each of the individual pieces that make up the architecture. I'm going to also explain, get into a little bit of the Agile, why page object methodology works best in an Agile environment. I'm going to give you an idea of how and what to automate. I'm going to really critical. I'm going to go over, which a lot of teams, they pick an automation tool and they have no idea why they picked it. They've never done an assessment, and they pick a tool that does not work with Agile. And then I'm going to try to give you some real tips and tricks and try to save you a lot of pain if you do go into a Selenium automation environment. And then I'm going to talk about some of the stuff you can do with Seculi, JDBC, and Puppeteer. And I'm going to give you a basics of using Selenium in a CI environment and then give you a little demo within. 4 different basic pieces of Selenium. The traditional first one is built with Selenium IDE, which is a Firefox plugin. It's a strict, record and play tool. It's great. I highly recommend it. If you're brand new to this and you're trying to learn Selenium, you have no idea, use Selenium IDE, get the basics. Allows you to record a test. Allows you in IDE to actually play around with it a little, sort of see how Selenium and WebDriver work. The other one is Selenium Core, which I'm going to call is basically its API. It's there, for simple terms, API meaning, what commands that are available in Selenium. And then Selenium RC. Selenium RC was after Selenium IDE, and what this allowed you to do was, I could record a test in Selenium IDE, copy that test as an export in, say, Java, .NET, Python, whatever you're using, whatever language your company uses, move that over to a developer IDE such as Eclipse or STS or something like that, and then manipulate the test over there, and then run it against the Selenium server. That's where we were with 1.0 at the end, Selenium 1.0. Selenium 2.0 comes along. Selenium 2.0, and a lot of people are not aware of this, the actual name of the full project is Selenium WebDriver 2.0. And what we're talking about when we're talking about Selenium 2.0, we're really talking about WebDriver. We really are not talking about Selenium anymore. WebDriver is its own API. It's basically sort of what's happened is in open source is WebDriver's become sort of an umbrella. It was developed by Google, and it's a much smaller, object-oriented API versus Selenium. If are any of you worked with Selenium in here, and you've noticed there's hundreds of commands, a lot of them you're going, I have no idea what this command's actually doing. WebDriver is a very, very small, compact set of API commands. And what's that? Whether it's Selenium, whether it's Water, all of them are now underneath the WebDriver umbrella. So what are the differences between, I'm going to specifically use, a lot of people use QTP. You're going to find I'm not a QTP fan. What are the problems with QTP? It's not cross-platform. It costs an absolute fortune to use. QTP needs VB script. Selenium WebDriver works with any language binding. The big plus that QTP had was, well, if you're a Selenium, you're strictly stuck on using it, testing on a web product. With the integration of Seculi now, I can test any type of GUI there is out there.
What was that buzzword?
Seculi.
How do you spell that?
S-I-K-U-L-I. So understanding sort of the merger of open source, and this is really simple if you really think about it. Who is writing the open source tools out there right now? They're generally developers in agile environments. They're writing test tools to improve the agile process. So as they're writing them, they're using those also in an agile type of environment. So it's basically two different agile communities that basically figured out, hey, we need agile, I need your open source tools to improve my processes, and open source has said we can use your methodology to improve how we develop these tools. And a lot of you'll see is there's a term test-infected developers, because there was a discussion here in the class before. Who in an agile environment, especially in a test-driven, who's the tester? Is it a QA? Is it the developer? As you're going to find in most test-driven development areas, it's really the developer, and there's a reason for that. If you have to write the test case first thing, what are the tools that are out there that allow you to actually write the test up front? QTP, you can't do it because of the record and play. So what they're generally talking about is they're using it, writing these test cases in X, so JUnit, test ng, whatever. They're writing them in a unit base. But because of tools like WebDriver, because of the paid methodology, I can also write those test cases first thing without actually having to code. That's the next slide. The biggest myth out there, in which I hear all the time, why organizations don't go to Selenium is, well, you got to be a programmer to write this code. False. I will point out, when I show you the architecture, yeah, some of the back-end architecture, you're probably going to need a developer to help you write that. Writing the test cases themselves, I could give any QA team an hour, workshop on it and have them writing tests within an hour. It's that easy. So, what is a large-scale Selenium automation environment? And again, I'll switch back and forth. When I talk Selenium, I'm also talking WebDriver, so I interchange them. First thing we have in the background, which in this environment, and this can be Maven and whatever your environment uses. In this case, I'm using Maven. If you're not familiar with what Maven does, Maven's a plugin repository and basically drives your build process and other things. But what it does is it makes the WebDriver jars available to you to run your test cases, Seculi, or any other third-party stuff you're using. You have to put those jar files somewhere and then make them available to your test cases to use. So Maven basically pulls that stuff out and makes it part of the build process so that Selenium can run. The next part I have is base Selenium. Base Selenium, and this is not an official name, I want to make this is what I call it. You can call it whatever you want if you're building this. Base Selenium does the initial work. It initializes your drivers. It sets up your resource bundle, your config file. If you're doing any JDBC stuff, it does your login for you. It does the teardown for you. So it's sort of like this umbrella sitting out there going, I'm setting everything up. putting it all together for you, and then the other pieces below that are actually going to use it. The page parent. Page parent is basically a class we set up. So if I'm writing page objects and test cases, and I've got, say, all my pages on my application have a standard buttons or whatever, I would write those buttons in one place and one place only, and make them available to all my page object test cases. So it's sort of like for common stuff you're writing methods for. Page objects. I want to make this clear. What page objects are, and what we're really talking about is, say, whatever your application is, you've got a welcome screen. You go to it. That's going to be a page object. That screen itself. I click on something to go to another page. That's a new page object. And what we're talking about is, on those pages, anything I can click on, anything I can enter text on, any kind of links, whatever, we consider those services. Those are services available on that page. So I'm going to add those to each individual page object, which makes those available to my test cases. Then we got test cases. All of our test cases run inside test suites. There's some obvious, if you think about it, I can mix and match my test cases. I can have a smoke test suite. I can have a regression test suite. I can have a system test suite. Whatever. I can move on, interchange, move all my test cases in, around, whatever I want to do. The other thing which we do, which is a resource bundle, an images directory, and test config. The big reason why I tell people don't use record and play tool, a couple things. You're hard coding all your data into that test case, which means it's not reusable by anybody else. So why would you do that? Anytime you make a change to a page, what do you got to do? You have to usually go rerun that test case again to reset it up. With page objects, if I have a change on a page, I go to whatever page object that changes on, and I make the change in one place and one place only. My test cases never know anything about that change. So I'll let you guys the basics of explaining page object methodology is, I want to take all the coding, all of that, and I want to abstract all that to the back end in the page objects. I want to make the test cases basically as simple as can be, that somebody can easily build a test case in here. And basically this talks about that basically a fix needs to be only applied in one place. Page objects are the only thing that really has a deep understanding of your code, your HTML on your pages. The test cases, like I said, are basically what I would almost call considered dumb. They know nothing. You're just telling what steps to run, and it's going to run a test case. Page objects should always return other page objects. Otherwise, if you don't, you need to then have to get into the actual underneath code between your page objects. So if I'm clicking a save button on a page, let's say I'm submitting, I'm buying something, I fill out my billing information, hit save, that should take me to a receipt. So it's one page object to another page object. Otherwise, I'm going to have to put code in between there to get to that next page object. We're abstracting all of the page objects in away from the test. But I want to get into the big part, why I'm a big fan, why I purposely tell people you need to know these kind of tools. If you're in a test-driven development or behavior-driven development, here's the facts. If you're a quality assurance person this day and age, and you cannot write these type of test cases, you're almost becoming obsolete in the industry. And it's sad, but it is true. And the reason is traditional tools. You're in a 2-week sprint. Well, how many of you are in Agile? How many of you get code in time to actually write automated test cases at the end of your sprint? With this, I don't need any of that code. I can do the same thing that the developer can do. All I need is a basic mock-up. Tell me, this is going to be the new page. These are going to be a bunch of elements. I don't care how they're on there, but they're elements. And I can go ahead on my page objects. I can mock up those methods on that page, and then start writing my test cases. And then what happens is, as the coder starts putting that code in, I start going to my page objects and putting in the IDs, the names, the XPath, the CSS, whatever it is that goes into that method. And then my test case will start slowly but surely running. When you get to the end of the 2-week sprint, boom, your tests, just like the developer, are already running. Your acceptance criteria is already tested. Next one. Bullet-based Selenium. Now I want to warn everybody, when I show you this code, a lot of people who are not developers go, holy shit, I can't do this. I can't do this. That's the first one.
I have a question for you regarding this page objects. As you said, if we write the page objects and we are ready, but when the developer is developing in the process, there are always some scenarios where they change the properties of the object to the back. Once they change the properties, our page objects sometimes will need to modify it again.
You shouldn't, because you can't, like, when I'm talking about a method on a page object, I'm a select list. I'm going to write a generic select list, and I'm going to name it, and I'm going to tell it, I'm going to string there and say it's going to my resource bundle. When it's done, come pull, select this out of the select list. I'm not putting an ID or name or XPath or anything on there yet. Not until that developer is finished and gives me some code where I can go into, like Firebug or something, see what that actual ID or name is, and then put it in. So I don't care if the developer is making a lot of changes as they go along. I'm just waiting. And even if I do make it, again, you're making one change in only one place with page object. So if they do change, went from an ID to a name or whatever, I just go to that one method and make a change. Test cases don't know anything about that. So in this environment, this is a Java shop. What I would basically, this is what I tell you. If you're going to go to using Selenium and stuff, all you really need to know is some basic partial Java. What is a package? What is a class? What is an import? And what is a method? You don't actually have to sit there and physically be writing them, but you need to understand what we're talking about. A package just simply means the location that the file is located at. It's that simple. Class is the name of all the code here that's under it. Import, I can import libraries and stuff. So what am I doing here? What I'm doing this first part here is I'm initializing, and this is the difference too I want to point out, with WebDriver versus Selenium. Selenium, when you would write your test cases, you would write in your test case, go to such and such URL and use such and such browser, Firefox, whatever. WebDriver uses individual drivers. So it would be an Internet Explorer driver, Firefox driver, Chrome driver, Android driver, iOS driver, whichever you want Safari driver, whichever. So you so we initialize all of these right off the bat. What we're doing here, and which I'll explain as we go along, once I've initialized this, I've made everything below this, my page methods, my objects, my test cases, can now use those drivers. And same thing with my resource bundle, my test config, my config file where I'm pulling what URL I'm testing, get what my login or I'm using, all that. I'm pulling that out of the config and it's initializing this and making this available now. And stop right here. And this particular client uses Seculi, so I'm also initializing. One of the things we do here is, because Seculi is just give you a quick thing. Seculi is an image-based testing tool developed by MIT. Incredibly great tool. But one of the things you do, obviously, if it's image-based, and I'm testing a test on a Mac with Safari versus Windows with IE, those images can be just a little off. So what we do here is, when that test case goes in and tries to start the setup process, I instantly go, what is my OS that I'm running there? And from that OS, I tell it, go use this exact image library. So there's different image libraries for Safari, for Windows, for whatever. So I'm initializing those right off the bat. We use Log4j, which is a bunch of logging information we use. And you have this set of methods. In this case, should we go over setup and show more setup? Yeah. So this is a method. It's setup. Setup is basically does all the initialization and gets us ready to log in. And then go on down. actually have all of our WebDriver Selenium integrated with security testing tools, with performance testing, and this is all handled in our base Selenium. So some of the stuff you'll see here isn't really applying to it, it just fits the regular Selenium here. And where's the log? Right this up right there. One of the other things we do is, as soon as we do setup, we'll maximize the window automatically for it, especially for Sakuli, because Sakuli needs to be able to see images on the page, so we maximize the window first thing. Tear down will log you out of the application. It'll shut down the application, and then it'll shut down WebDriver for you. On here we also have, you can have multiple logins on here. So our test suites is where we call the login. So different test suites log into different testing data sets. So we have multiple logins here. And go all the way down. There's the one login there. And the login basically handles it simple. On a like a application, put in the username, put in the password, and click the go-to page.
So you're using a property file?
Yes.
Technology.
Yep, we use a test config file that handles all of our passwords, usernames, testing URLs, everything. And just go down to the bottom, all the way down to the bottom, the JDBC stuff.
So you're logging into existing users?
Mm-hmm. Go up a little. And one of the other things which this client does is the application is called Evaluate when it's a online evaluation, but a company can go in and create their own scratch, create their own company in there. So part of the testing was we're running a smoke test. Test goes in, something fails. Well, I've already given a company short name in there which you can't repeat. So what we do with JDBC is, as we get to that company's name, we input the same company name in, but JDBC goes into the background, looks for that company, and says, okay, I see tech 6000. It'll come back, increment that to tech 6001, and continue on. So it's one of the things we do with JDBC on here. And let's go back. Test config. We go to test config. And this is what I was saying. At the very top here, as you see the base URLs, and this is where we choose where we want to test against. So in most software environments, you have your stages, your CI environments, whatever, sandboxes. We can test against anyone. We just have to change the test config to tell it where to go test at. Usernames, like I said, these are existing users that are in the system, and depending on which login we tell the test suite to use, it's going to pull the information out of here. Locales, we do localization, so we have different resource bundles we run against. We tell, in here I'm telling it which browser to go test against here, but we also run an environment where we run against Selenium Grid, where we run our test in parallel against Firefox, Safari, Chrome, whatever. Grid will actually override this for us. I won't get into this. This is our Z-Attack proxy testing and stuff for our proxy that we set up when we're running that. This is our Sakuli image libraries, and then also at the bottom is our JDBC drivers, which ones they use for our testing purposes. Resource bundle, and this is what I was emphasizing with record play. Don't hard code your data into your test cases. Use something like a resource bundle where you pull the data and you can reuse test cases, and each test, depending what you put in a resource bundle, I can put new data into each test case. Resource bundle is very, very simple to use. And this is basically what it is when I go to my test, my method that I'm calling in the test to go click or enter data into a text field, I'm going to tell it, go to the resource bundle, find username, and then input the text that's associated with the username. And it's that simple, basically. And I'll show you in the test how you call that.
How is that different than the test.config?
Test.config config is just our setup information. It's our usernames, it's our URLs. Technically, you could put it in here, but I wouldn't.
Yeah, I was just wondering what the
Yeah.
difference was between test config and just the resource bundle.
Resource bundle is simply data that you're inputting into a
That
method.
particular test.
Yes. So if I'm selecting something from a select list, I'm inputting text into a data field, whatever, that would all go into here. The test config stuff is particular to who I'm going to test as and where I'm going to test at.
So this file would be like your data-driven, like you would have a collection of these
Yep.
to do
And it's actually what it is.
data-driven
It's
testing.
for data-driven testing. And go to the very top. And I want to explain so you understand how Java works. Inheritance. It's basically, you're going to see public class, and I've called it this page parent, extends base Selenium. By doing extending, everything that's in base Selenium, I've now made available the page parent. And when we get to the page objects, you're going to see that I extend page parent, which means everything in page parent is available to every single page object. And why that's important is, like I was saying, if I have a common button that's on every page, I just need to create it once on page parent, and it's now available to every single page object. Cascaded page objects, what they are. Strategy is finding a page.
So when we are sharing the page parent, and when we are writing the spaces and just rewriting the spaces, they have to keep in mind the design.
Yeah, well, I'll show you what we're going to do when we get to the test case. The test case is you just simply tell the test, I'm going to use this page, and this page. And then when I type in the method, and I'll actually show you this, but it'll make all the methods on those pages, page parent, base Selenium, and that page will be then available in the list, and I can select which one I want. Public, this method, click the ETW logo. This is, so everybody's clear. All these methods are basically almost, but they're almost duplicates of each other. Basically, you're going to have certain types. You're going to have select list. You're going to have click a button, click a link, enter text, text fill. So what you're doing is basically as you're creating these page objects and each of the services and methods here, I'm just going to, so I could click ETW logo, fill this out, it's ready to go. There's another logo on there that I can click on it. I could simply copy this, paste it onto this page, and then simply go change, obviously you want to change, you have to change it, go back up. So basically, like I would change the description, you have to change the method name, and then obviously in this case it's using XPath, so I'd have to change the XPath to be what that logo's XPath is. But you're just simply copy and pasting on most of them, and then adding new methods as you go along. You're not creating these methods from scratch every time.
So, I'm trying to catch up with you. So you have your parent page object, and then you have your page object, and then does parent page extend something else?
It extends base Selenium.
Base, and your base is just your setup of what browser,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff.
But there's an important point on it. Your login and teardowns are there. So when I'm running a test case, I may have a sort of test case where I'm going to do something as one user.
Yeah.
I need to log out and log in as another user to check that those results showed up for that other user. So I still need to pull different logins from base Selenium.
Okay. And so then what's the distinction in between your parent page object and your page object?
Parent page object is like I was saying, a button that's on every single page. Instead of having to create it on every page object, I just create it in one place, and then it's available to all the pages.
Okay. So that's a literal specific button. That would be like a global button.
Would you like to log out then?
Yeah. common element that's on all your pages, and so don't rewrite it for every page. Just write it in one place, and it's available to every page.
So if you have a drop down, so the drop down is different on different pages, but it's still a drop down, it's still a select.
Yeah, you could actually do that on as a helper. You could do that as on your page parent.
So you can call it as a global parent object.
Right. We got time.
A quick question, just because I noticed you had an XPath locator. Are you doing your testing on Internet Explorer?
We do it on all.
Have you noticed the significance performance drop with XPath locators?
There, yes and no. Sliding 1.0, yeah, it was horrifying. It would literally crawl. WebDriver, no, not. There's really not much of a difference performance-wise with WebDriver.
With your XPath locator?
Yeah.
Because we've seen a big difference. We looked into it a little bit, and the explanation that we found was that Internet Explorer doesn't have an XPath engine.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it falls back to other methods, and it takes longer.
Yeah. And actually, one of the things you can do with WebDriver, you can actually change out the XPath engine if you do want to. You do know that.
Oh,
Yeah.
I haven't looked into that.
Yeah. But it also comes back to a simple thing, which I always tell developers. Don't put XPath on stuff if you can absolutely help it. XPath, and what I didn't go over, when I'm creating a method, I want to select something, I tell them either ID, name, preference. CSS selector if I actually have to. If I'm stuck with the XPath, I actually may go schooling instead. But yeah, if I can help it at all, I don't want to use XPath anywhere in this. But unfortunately,
Sometimes
there's,
it's a necessity.
especially when you get into tables and stuff, there's times where that's the only thing you have to choose on. So let's go to the test. So, if you see what I was telling you earlier, when I run a test case using the page object methodology, all I have to do is tell my test case what pages I want to use in it. So I'm doing these right here where I'm using strategy planning homepage, login page, and strategic plan objective page. So once I've done that, all the methods or services on those pages are now available to this test case. And let's go down. I chose one I shouldn't have chose. We'll come back to it, but I'll show you. Where you see this string test ID, this is where I would tell for each of my methods, if I had something in a resource bundle I need to pull from the resource bundle, this is where I would pull it from. I'll go to another test case right after this and show you how you actually do that. This is a simple, I'm going to strategic plan objective page, and I'm going to click go to the automation strategic plan link, and then I'm just simply doing a bunch of assertions here that the elements are on this page are all there. One of the things which we like to do is we have a known data set we use. We will load that onto one of our stages, load a new release on top of that, and then come through each page and check every element on the page and make sure it's still there. Things like buttons, if they should be visible or disabled, we check all of that to make sure those are all there. You'd actually be shocked at how often those are messed up when you go through. Can we go? Actually, I don't finish. Doing this, this is what I would do. So if where you see strategic plan objective and click on it, if this was a method where I'm actually, say, text, or where I'm dropping the text into the field. In there, you would have seen the test, the string test. You would have seen test sitting in there. It would look at string test at the top and tell it, go to test data, get string, and I would tell where I was showing the username in the resource bundle and the data that was associated to it. It would pull that and put it into that method for me.
As you're doing this, I'm confused about, I love about how a page object returns another page object, so that flows. If you could point that out for me, I would love that.
Yeah.
When you get there, if that.
Yeah, well, I'll come back and I'll show you a different test. I should have done a better job choosing test here. Here's the test we worked with. And this is a simple test suite, as you can see. I can mix and match these test cases all I want. And this, I've got a bunch of annotated up because I'm using this for the demo. I'm just going to run a couple for you, but go all the way down. And you'll see the before class and after class. Before class, I'm calling. This is, remember, in base Selenium, I had setup and login. So this is where I'm calling setup, and this is where I'm calling the login. I'm logging into it as a particular user into a specific URL that is in test config. And then after the test case is finish up, I'm going to call log out and then tear down, and it'll shut everything down for me and clean everything up. Can you quickly, did I guess? Yes. Go down to test cases. Open up Selenium admin. Grab admin company there. That new performance department. I guess go to admin performance department. Which one it does. Yes, it does. So as you can see here, our strings that we're calling, and go down. Hopefully this multiple pages here. Okay, so yes, ma'am. So stop. So you can see, first thing I'm doing is I'm going to my home page. I'm clicking my team tab, and then I'm going to click on a cog row on their icon. Click add performance requirements link. That takes me to a new page object by doing that. And then all I do is I start up on new individual performance requirement page. Just simply, and because I've got implicit waits there, it's going to sit there and wait for an element that it sees on that page before it'll start up.
Oh, sorry, I'm sorry, I missed the whole thing. What was your thing?
Okay, so my test starts off. I'm on home page. I'm doing something. I'm clicking my team tab.
Yes.
I'm clicking the cog row 2 icon. And underneath the cog row 2 icon, I'm selecting add new requirement link in there. When I do that, that takes me to a new page object, or it takes me to a new screen on the application by itself. If I did not use it this way, I would have to do something here and put actual code in here and say, navigate to this page now. And then from there, it starts on this new page. We'll start doing stuff on that page for me. One of the things I didn't talk in here about is like what WebDriver versus Selenium. Selenium used explicit waits, and explicit waits are simply, when I load a page, I would tell it, wait exactly this amount of time before I load. WebDriver has implicit waits. So what I tell it is, when I go to a new page, I tell it to go into a 10-second wait, but then the next line below that, I'm telling it, look for this ID or element on that page. As soon as you see it, drop into a 0 wait and move on. So as soon as it sees something that I'm looking for on a page, instantly comes out of the wait for me. As I've already sort of talked about, but because of the move, and you're going to find a lot of organizations that are using test-driven, but most of them are moving to behavior-driven. Even ones who call themselves test-driven, you really look at the scenarios they're writing, they're really behavior-driven methodology and using an outside in. So if I'm doing a mock-up, first thing I'm doing in a sprint is I'm doing a mock-up, then you would want to use a tool beginning of the sprint, just like a developer does in a test-driven environment. Again, record and playback automation tools, they cannot do this. You have to have code in place before I can write those automated test cases if it's a record and play tool. Okay, so what should you automate? First thing I tell a client come in, do you have any kind of map of what your application is? Because remember, you're going to come in and create all these page objects, so you better know what your application entails. And what I tell them is, come in, map out your product, create your page objects, but the key is, when you create your page objects, each one, you do not need to put all the methods on it right away. They can be almost a placeholder. As you start writing your test cases, then you start adding the methods onto those page objects. But have those placeholders already in place so you know those page objects are already there.